right, welcome to another episode of the Director's Chair, our first season on the works of David Lynch. We are knee deep in season 2. The big bad has been revealed, and things are getting exciting. In my opinion, I guess there's the one plot line that gets wrapped up in these 3 episodes that people criticize, but even if you're not a big fan of that one, I think these are 3 really solid episodes with some good mystery and humor and melodrama.
All the things that you look for in Twin Peaks, let's be honest. Like everything that Twin Peaks is definitely found in these episodes.
Yeah, I would definitely say that the thing that I know is it really is wrapping up some of the sideline stuff. You could tell they were saying, okay, we don't need to focus on that so much anymore, and wrapping up a few of those things. Again, I'm less critical than a lot of people are of the Evelyn plotline, but it is good that it's sort of finished up here, and then we can move on away from that. The little Nikki plot gets wrapped up. Yeah,
we talked about the last time we did this, that going through it again, I don't hate the Evelyn. I actually found it. And this watch through, I found it much more interesting. I was actually kind of like, it's a neat tonal shift for James, putting him in like that double indemnity femme fatale situation, which really goes big in these episodes. Like I said, to me, I know it's not what people normally think of when they think of Twin Peaks, as far as like it's not a quirky side, adventure with James. But I really like it. And Lynch himself is a huge fan of Sunset Boulevard. He's a huge fan of those older films of that nature. So when I think about it from that perspective, it doesn't seem that entirely out of place. And to me, I think it gives James something to do other than just sit around and pout.
Right.
For sure. It's definitely film noir. It's doing
it very much is. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, it feels like homage that way.
Yeah.
But probably at the time when this was on air, I'm sure people are like, why are we doing this? Let's get back to what's going on.
Sure. It's that's why I'm saying I think it's a subplot that when you go back and watch it now, and especially if you've studied Lynch, if you've watched his work, you're kind of like, okay, I get what was going on here, and I like I said, I appreciated it more this view through than I ever did before. Because again, when I was in high school, I was like, we were kind of like, what the hell? Let's get on with something else. I don't care about James right now. But then it's like when I watched it this time, I was like, man, okay, why was I always missing the point? This is really good. Like this is a neat sideline gig for James. That's again better than just sitting around pouting or riding around aimlessly on his motorcycle. This gives him something to do, and he's in a vulnerable situation because of everything that's happened with Laura and with Maddie, and it's that vulnerability that leads him right into this horrible situation. And I mean, it doesn't bother me, man. I found myself actually really liking that subplot this time. But again, the good news is it does not overstay its welcome. It gets resolved and we move on. But I don't know. I liked it as a sort of a final point for James. I think it's an interesting thing for him. And I think it sends him off the show in at least a more interesting light than just having him ride off as just the depressed, brooding teen.
Right.
For sure. And then we even get Donna involved in the finale of
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It all comes together.
Yeah, Donna feels like a character that they didn't know what to do with for big chunks of this season.
It's true. Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And of course, once we get to the return, obviously they really didn't know. So it's just like, it's just like Donna's kind of gone. And it's a shame that it goes down that path because early in the first season in particular, Donna's situation with James and with Maddie was so interesting. And she is kind of like, the innocent side of Laura represented, whereas James and Bobby are like her darker side, like Kirk has Spock and he has Bones, right? They kind of represent the two sides of his brain. And Donna and James kind of were doing that with Laura. And it's a shame that in this second season, they just, like you said, they really didn't know what to do with her. And that's no fault on the actress. It's no fault on Laura Flynn Boyle. It's just they just didn't know what to do. So at least she does get involved in this storyline, which if anybody was going to, it makes sense that it would be her, because she's probably the one person who's most interested in his safety and what the hell he's doing next to to Big Ed, who's got his own stuff going on.
He's got his own little
he's got his own separate adventure.
But weren't you guys saying that they were having issues with the show's budget with some of the actors, and that's why a lot of the characters kind of get sidelined in season 2?
Well, I don't know. I don't know too much about that. I think that, I mean, you definitely see that the cast doesn't appear in every episode like they did
No.
in season 1. They spread them out. There's episodes, we've just gone through a period where we didn't see much of Shelley and Bobby, and now we're starting to see more of them again. So they're definitely spreading them around a little bit. I mean, this is James's storyline gets wrapped up here. We see him, I think, once more, and then he's gone, for the rest of the season. And again, Donna's kind of floundering after that. She gets thrown into the Miss Twin Peaks storyline, which always feels a bit awkward for her. I mean, she starts to get interesting again at the very end. We'll talk about all that later, but for right now, it does feel like she's flailing a little bit. I mean, the other storylines they wrap up the little Nikki storyline. They put a nice little bow on that.
Which I will say the James storyline is more interesting than the whole.
Yes,
me too.
Yes,
I'm
it
on
is.
board with
that.
that.
That guy, Dick, it's a little sneaking into the child adoption agency scheme.
Yeah. I'm glad we're done with all
ridiculous,
of that.
But yeah, I'm glad it also gets resolved, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh at some of that stuff. Just because I love Andy so much, and Andy and Dick together are so funny. And I still believe, like we talked about last time, I almost feel like Lucy is the one setting this up to just mess with them. Like, I really think like she absolutely knows she's going to end up with Andy. It's just kind of like a fun way to get back at Andy for the issue she had with him, and get back at Dick for being just living up to his namesake. And to me, I just feel like it's just like it's all like she's like the puppet master pulling the strings.
I think I enjoy Dick more later in the season when he becomes more of just a side character, comic relief character, like as he's involved with
at the pageant,
like
the wine tasting. Yes, I think I
enjoy him more then, because then he can just be that quirky character, and he doesn't have to be like someone we're following that closely.
I will throw this out there, that actor is so great in the part of Dick, and I love that David Lynch basically he cast him in On the Air as Lester Guy, host of the Lester Guy show. And he basically is the same character. He is this smarmy D-bag who's the star of his own show. And then everybody else on the show ends up becoming famous but him. Like it's great. If you've never seen On the Air, the pilot episode of that show, David Lynch directed it, is one of the single funniest hours of television I've ever watched in my life. The rest of it only got to air 4 episodes because it tanked so dismally in the ratings. Really they shot 7. And they were all on a VHS tape that I was able to get from my video store when it was going out of business. It's not that they're not unlike Twin Peaks, where they had other directors take over and it still worked. Right. They have other directors take over that show and it doesn't, because it's such an odd, it's a very Lynchian sense of humor. And if you don't get that, if you don't understand that vibe, it doesn't work, because then it becomes like, oh, we're just doing weird stuff for the sake of weird stuff. And isn't it funny because it's weird? And no, that's not why the pilot is so successfully funny. That pilot, I'm not kidding. You might be able to find it on YouTube. It is.
Yeah, I remember I saw the original pilot. I think that's all I ever saw of that show, though.
That's all I almoys treat it like a one-off thing. Like it's just, this is a one-off thing and it's fantastic. It's so good. It's so good. But that actor, again, just digression, but David Lynch obviously really loved that actor, because he obviously, hung that show around him as well, which I thought was, again, good call. Because he plays.
I enjoy him in the first part of the season when they first introduce him. I enjoy him, like I said, a little bit later. I think it's just this storyline is the one that grates on me the most. I'm glad to see it wrapped up. The other storyline that wraps up is the Civil War. So we get that sort of wrapped up, and then we get the next episodes we're moving into. We get a new Ben, and that I think is really interesting. But
that's actually some of the better stuff in the season. Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, for sure. But we're not there yet. We're wrapping up his psychosis.
We're right now at the Battle of Gettysburg with Ben. So we're starting in the history reenactment. It begins really kind of here.
Well, and here's another example of a character they didn't know what to do with for a period, which was Audrey, because they had planned, there was going to be this romance, and then they decided not to do it. So now they're like, what do they do with her? And I like what they do with her. I like that she decides she's going to take charge of things. I love how her scene where she's talking to her uncle and saying to Jerry and saying, no, I'm the one who gets to call the shots. I love that part. I think this is one of my favorite bits with Audrey. And and
It's
they
great.
finally figure out where they're going with her in the next little while too. But for this part, I actually like where they like, obviously they don't really know what to do with Audrey, but I like what they end up doing with her and how
That's fair.
she
Yes.
gets to take over. She gets to control Bobby. She gets to control Jerry. She's making sure her dad's going to be okay. Like, I just like how she takes charge.
And she has a romance with that sexy Billy Zane. Before he was the Phantom.
This whole scenario where Dr. Jacoby's like, we've just got to have him win the Civil War and he'll come out of it.
Yes.
Right.
I love that that's Jacoby's, like, his theory. If we do this, and it works. Like,
the fact that Jacoby isn't sued for malpractice after everything we've seen him do, like, I don't know. Like,
all I'm saying is in the return, he's not a doctor anymore. I'm just going to put that out there.
Good point.
I mean, to be fair,
he's living in a cabin selling his golden shovels. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he did get sued out of existence for that. I don't know.
Maybe it's probably a good thing if he lost his license, I'd say, after everything we've seen in this.
Anybody should. Goddamn, it's his.
Do not be counseled with this man.
Well, the first episode we got to look at, the big thing in this episode, of course, is we get to see Major Briggs after his crazy trip, and we've got those insignias on the side of his head, which bear very strong resemblance to like a radioactive or nuclear symbol, the three triangles. And he talks about the vision of the owl, which I thought was very interesting, because we know in Twin Peaks that the owls are not what they seem. And so we know he's seen some things out there. The White Lodge, exactly.
This is some of the meat of this season, right? Like the world building, the mythology. Like, this is where we get some of that. This is some of the stuff that's some of the really good red meat for this part of the season.
We really get the existence of the White Lodge is confirmed here. We get this from Briggs, and of course, as you know, we'll get to it in the return. But this is very critical stuff we're setting up here, and I love tying it into the whole thing. Like, the Air Force is aware of it, so you get that governmental, high level conspiracy kind of stuff. Really, really good stuff. So yeah, we have like the Air Force folks who show up and take Major Briggs away before he can say too much. So it's like, hey, we get a little bit, but then they're like, nope, we can't tell you everything.
Top secret, get out of here. We got to take
top secret. You don't have clearance. I don't care who you are. You don't have clearance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting in this episode, because we're getting some of that questioning of the of the traditional authorities, right? We've got the Air Force being like all sketchy and cagey, and Cooper's been kicked out of the FBI, and there's this whole plot with with Jean and the corrupt RCMP officer. Like there's a lot of this sort of like whereas we've got Cooper being deputized by Truman,
Harry,
and so we've got this idea that it's he has to rely on he can't necessarily rely on the institutions,
right?
Yeah,
and
to
I
a
love
certain degree. I mean,
the only one he can is the Twin Peaks Police Department, and that's what's really interesting. They're the only ones he can trust, and that's a complete 180 from where we've been all this time. Now all of a sudden there's nobody you can trust other than Sheriff Harry, Andy, Hawk. That's like all you got. That's all you got.
Well, like I said, the one exception to that would be Denise, because
Denise and Albert
ends up being and Albert, Albert, who comes back in the next episode, so that's great. And it's we say goodbye to Denise. We talked about her already a lot, but I just want to again give my props to her and that character. It's great that she got to save the day. The end of
I was going to say, the hero of the episode.
That's right.
And I love that that's done so beautifully. And Denise is absolutely the hero, and it is in no way, shape, or form. And again, very ahead of its time for 1991 television. It's not a joke. It's not. They don't take away that agency that Denise is the hero of that situation. I mean, Cooper will straight up tell you that's who got his ass out of the sling. That's absolutely Denise. And I love that. I love that so much.
Me too. And I'm so glad it's not the end of her story. We get to see more of her in the return. So that's great. We'll talk more about her then.
God, and that moment is a fantastic moment. One of my favorites of the return.
But again, you can see they're wrapping that storyline up with Jean and the RCMP officer, because they want to move into the next villain, at which they start to do so well.
Oh yes,
with Windom Earle,
so
and
good.
This is where he really appears, is in this next arc
yes.
here, and that's great. Like, we start to get those. So they wrap up that other story, so they can move into when they're ready to really debut Earl, and that whole like his date, like the power outage. the dead body showing up in the police station,
and
like
him just making Leo pee his pants.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
like,
well, that's another thing. Leo, that's another story that gets wrapped
yeah,
up is
Leo
Leo's
is not
coma.
in the wheelchair
Yes.
anymore.
No, so we get out of that, and Leo becomes a threat again because Leo has always been, I think, like he's low level villain, but he's still like he's a menace, and he's
and it's
he's a
terrifying the way it's
monster.
done. It's shot like a horror film.
Yes.
You know, you
Oh,
have
yeah,
Shelley
that
coming
whole-
home, everything's the lights are out. There's like the weird,
Yep.
like the party hat and stuff, and then like she
Yeah.
comes through that door and the door closes and there he is, and I mean like that is. It's genuinely chilling. That is an effective return, and it really reminds us that Leo is that. I mean, he is scary.
Yeah,
because Leo has no conscience, man. He has none.
Right. No,
and
that's right.
it's really well done, because then you have to go back and start watching the series again and be like, at what point is he faking?
Right.
Because you know he is at some point. There is something that's going on in one of the scenes we see where they're messing with him. He's faking it.
Yeah.
And that's really scary when you start thinking about that he was willing to let them do these horrible things to him so that he could finally get his revenge when he was ready. That's terrifying, man.
But as terrifying as the reveal that he's been faking it and he's fine and he's attacking them, him running out into the woods and then finding the cabin, Windom Earle, it is so much more chilling, and Windom just has that calm demeanor, but like this guy could go off at anything.
Oh, dude, Kenneth Welsh plays him to perfection. I mean, really and truly, I'll be honest, like he's really one of my favorite characters in all of Twin Peaks. I think Windom Earle is an absolute fantastic foil because he is the anti-Cooper.
Yeah, he's basically
very calm.
the Moriarty to his home.
And he's almost funny. Like he's kind of silly and aloof until he's not. And then he's genuinely scary. Like he is a scary, scary man, period.
And, he appears to be a master of disguise and like deception.
I always like to think of him as there by the grace of God go I, like kind of character like that. He's almost who Cooper could be.
Absolutely.
If Cooper, and I mean, again, later when we get to the return, we can talk some more about that. But I see a little bit of them, not so much as opposites, but as like, sort of brothers in arms that, end up taking different paths. Right. And I think that's part of what makes them scary.
Maybe instead of Holmes and Moriarty comparison, they're a Kenobi Vader.
Yeah. I mean,
even though Windom is the mentor and was the apprentice.
Yeah. I agree with you, though. I think he's one of the better characters in the whole series. I think Kenneth Welsh, great Canadian actor. I'm a big fan, and
funny enough, he actually played Watson to Matt Frewer's Holmes in a series of Hallmark films that were shot in Canada.
True.
And actually, they're not bad at all, man. They're really not. But his Watson, like his accent and stuff, like he's money. Like he's money.
Oh, he's an excellent
really
actor.
great in this, man.
Really great character actor. He brings so much. There's so many layers to his Earl, and that's what makes Earl's like such a great big bad for this season.
He's a character that even when he's not on screen, there's a presence. You know what I mean? Like you can just feel it once you know he's in the town. And when he is on screen, you cannot take your eyes off of him. Yeah. Because he is, in a lot of ways, like Heath Ledger's Joker. He's got like that ability to just like go from zero to psycho in a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And yet, even when he goes psychotic, he's still got control. Like it's creepy. It's
and I think your analogy is a really good one, because he's also that that idea of presented in the Dark Knight of just someone who wants to watch it burn. Like definitely, I think he's got a whole bunch of motivation. Like there's potentially the revenge thing, but really we find out that he's on to something even more. Like he's there to get to the Black Lodge.
Yes,
there's he's working on multiple levels here, pulling like all kinds of strings, and but I think there's also just that element, like his desire for the Black Lodge is around, I think, just the chaos, right?
Yes,
absolutely.
It's so scary,
and that's what makes him scary.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this episode, like I said, we get a lot of big things. You get the start of the Confederacy run of Ben Horn as Robert E. Lee. This all starts here. we do again. We get the final wrap up with Denise, and that sequence is so well done. Like seriously, like showing up in the waitress outfit and showing Cooper where the gun is so that Cooper can get the shot. Like it's so good. Like it's so good, and I love that. Again, the Twin Peaks Sheriff Department, like everybody is behind Denise. Like they're like, if this is your play, we're with you, man. We're going to make the play happen. We're going to set you up. You get in there and get it done. And I love, again, that, again, for 1991, that's very progressive television. And I really appreciate that it's what I love about the Twin Peaks Sheriff Department in these 2 seasons. Like, all they look at is, are you a good person? Are you here to help? Then we're glad to have you here. Welcome, friend. Help us save the day. And I love that they extend that to Cooper immediately. They extend it to Denise immediately. And I just, you have to love those characters because they're what every police department should aspire to be. They're honestly what every human being should aspire to be. Just accept people for who they are. Judge them on, are they good or are they bad? If they're good, then awesome. If they're bad, then fuck them. It just needs to be that simplified, man.
The really Deer Meadow Police Department would not have reacted in the same way.
No. Deer Meadow would not have done well with that at all. No. They'd have been talking about how they've got a phone. It's got a that's where they'd be at. Denise would have been like, I'm out of here, rednecks. I'm done. And rightfully so. But we get a lot. We get all this. We do get also finally the move with Evelyn and James, where they finally close escrow, so to speak. Right. So we know that James is starting to get sucked into that web. So she's starting to lure him in with the lies and the promises. And he's at that beautiful house working on a beautiful car and with this beautiful woman. And James, again, he's rife for the picking, man. Like he's totally, he is susceptible and she knows it. And the fangs are starting to get sunk in this episode. So this is a big move for James, because now suddenly when you're aware of where this story is going, like you really start realizing the danger this kid's in. Like it's big and it's bad what's coming. Like we're talking like you could be arrested, homie, and we're talking like life in prison. Like it is not going to be good for you, James. It is not going to be good.
But
we're starting to get that
death
set up.
Penalty in Washington.
Right. Yeah. So there's that. Then we have the big explosion at the power station. Which, as we find out at the end, was a setup by Windom Earle, because you get that chilling shot of the dead body pointing at the chessboard, and it's absolutely like, oh, it's so creepy.
You mentioning him being like Heath Ledger's Joker in the next episode when Albert shows up and all this random stuff he's attaching to dead bodies across the country. That's something the Joker would do just for the hell of it.
Yeah. Windom Earle is on a different level, man. Like he is playing 4D chess and it's terrifying because he is so scary and he's so smart. So that episode ends with that awesome shot. And if I remember correctly, I think the body is like Kyle MacLachlan's brother, I think.
Yeah, I think I read that. Yeah.
Which is really funny. Like that's so great. But you get that chilling setup and you're just like, man, like this guy's not nice. He is not Cooper. Like, and we're putting dead bodies into positions to set up your game. Like that's creepy.
I remember in my first watch, this idea of playing a chess game where the pieces represented real people was just, I think, a fascinating idea for me. I think I love macabre, and how scary that was, and I just thought it was a great idea. We'd seen, game imagery, we'd seen card, from One Eye Jacks, we'd seen that kind of stuff. So seeing the chess imagery and using that as a metaphor was just a very, I think, a natural flow for this, and it just fits with this. It just feels very Twin Peaks.
Yes, it does.
For sure.
It's really creepy, and it's. And it's funny because this is like a year after Silence of the Lambs. So it's kind of interesting to see how Silence of the Lambs was having that sort of permeation into the pop culture still. And this definitely has that kind of vibe. Now, that's not a knock. Silence of the Lambs is one of the few perfect films I've ever watched in my entire life, like genuinely perfect movies. And if you're going to steal an idea from a film, that's a brilliant one to steal it from, because man, they don't get much better. And I love the fact though, that with Windom Earle, you get like that sort of serial killer vibe as far as like what he does, but who he is is not what you think of at all as a serial killer. He's not crazy. He's not walking around in like, women's skin trying to be a different human being. He's not that. He's incredibly intelligent. He's incredibly insightful. He's incredibly like emotional. Like he is really, for lack of a better word, he's just Cooper with no morals.
Yeah.
And that's one of the scariest things you can possibly think of when you realize how smart Cooper is, how resourceful Cooper is. Now imagine if he was bad. Now you'll get that in the return. We'll talk about that. You'll get an idea of that. But with this is really interesting because it's Windom Earle is not what you think of when you think of like the serial killer stereotype. For movies, I'm talking, not in reality, but for movies.
Right.
He's not, walking around, like naked and crazy and spouting gibberish about Jesus or Nazis or what the hell ever. He's genuinely driven. He's incredibly intelligent, and he knows where he wants to go. And it's terrifying that he can, even though he's driven to get something done, that he has the time and the wherewithal and the energy and the focus to still do these things along the way. Like, that's genuinely creepy. And he, to me, every time I watch season 2, I can't wait till we get to the parts where he starts really getting in it. And every time, I just think it gets better every time I watch it. You just notice more about him and notice more about who he is. And Kenneth Walsh doesn't get enough credit for his work in this. He really doesn't. And it's a shame that so many viewers turned off the show once we got the revelation of who killed Laura Palmer. It's really a shame because this stuff is some of the best stuff in Twin Peaks. I'm going to say that right now. It's a hill I would die on. Windom Earle's arc, I think, is some of the best stuff in the entirety of Twin Peaks.
He's an incredible character, and he's a much more menacing and terrifying villain than, nothing against what's going on in season 1, but like he is a much more, what's the word? Intimidating villain.
Yes,
the hero.
Leo is scary because Leo is a blunt force tool. Like, he's a hammer, right? He's a sledgehammer, more importantly. You got Hank, who's a little more refined, but he's still like a blade, baby. He's not.
But he gets his ass handed to him.
Oh, he does get that. Yes, he does. But then Windom Earle is like, he's a refined set of cutting tools, man. Like he is precision. He is laser. He is precision focused, man. And it's such a he's just I cannot get enough of Windom Earle. Like, I wish we would have gotten more with him, period. I wish he was there all along because I think he's just he's so good. Like, I mean, he's there more than we realize because when you start looking at it, but as far as the performance of Kenneth Walsh being in the show, I wish we would have had more of him because he's so good. He's so good.
There's nothing more terrifying than someone who is really good at what they do, and they have no qualms or worries about killing someone, and they're very good at it.
Yep.
One of the things, all the patience in the world to be meticulous.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that I love about episodes 20 to 22 that we're talking about today is how much the long game is starting to play out now. Like, we get the Thomas Eckert plot line that has been really set up in the pilot.
Yes.
And we're finally getting to some of that. All of that stuff with Josie and Thomas
and Andrew,
and Andrew Packard.
Oh, that's a big reveal.
All of the coming back from the dead. Like,
great David Warner shows up.
Yes,
David Warner is
really good actors showing
money
up
in
here.
Anything. And he's great as Thomas Eckert. He's great. But he's great in anything. God, he's great. I love David Warner so much.
Like, I love that all of this stuff is coming. The Vicuna coat, the Who Shot Cooper.
Yes.
Like, all of this stuff is finally coming out, and it's all tied in, and it all comes out in a way that I just think feels so natural. Like, it doesn't, nothing feels forced. It feels like it was plotted this way all along, but it's been simmering for the longest time, and we've gotten little pieces, and now it's finally starting to build. And I love this part of the story too. This is one of my favorite aspects of mid-season 2 is this whole little bit here. I'm glad we're like, and again, I said, like, this is stuff they planted the seeds for way back in the pilot, and we're finally getting the payoff for some of that, and it's great stuff. And all of that, it brings back Catherine as a villain. I mean,
Oh, the
again, we've
great
talked about
Catherine
how
in the
she
show.
works both as someone you hate and love at the same time, and we're seeing that come in, and all of her treatment of Josie is so horrible. And anyways, I just love this whole arc getting really kicking into high gear, and the way they do it again, similarly to the film noir stuff that we were talking about with the Evelyn storyline. I love the soapy, dramatic, like when Thomas Eckert shows up and he turns around, he's at the fireplace. Like it just feels so like
Oh, this is where the
Dynasty or
soap opera
something. I
stuff,
don't
they go
know, but I
hard.
love it.
They go hard. No, this
Yeah.
is all, but it's all the great things about a soap opera. When you get those revelations in a soap opera, you're like, oh, I can't believe it's that kind of thing, man. But it's all the great stuff about soap opera.
Yeah.
I mean, it is still
Andrew Packard walking out and saying, "Hi,
sleeve, man."
Yeah, so
Yeah,
good.
it wears it
Been
on
alive the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So good. And but like I said, I love that the show does such a good job of weaving it in very naturally without, like, none of the reveals feel like Deus Ex Machina, right? Like it feels like it was baked in the whole time, like with Catherine's whole disappearance and coming back. And there's a good reason, like she had resources, right? Like she had somewhere to go.
Yeah.
So she wasn't just stumbling around in the woods like she, like her version of the story, right? She knew that she could go somewhere, she'd have support, and her plan and execute her plan was so brilliantly laid out and so brilliantly executed. And so, I think this part is one of my favorite aspects of this period of season 2 for sure. And
did we just get a great scene of David Warner and Piper Laurie just acting off each other at a dinner table,
and the pig's head, like it's just so good.
Yes. No, I was looking at just like the breakdown for this episode. I love that we build up more of the Cooper and Windom Earle connection, because there's the whole thing when they're like talking about the body of the chessboard player, and Cooper knows how he was killed, because what we'll find out is, of course, that is how the girl was killed. Like that is how Carolyn, how she was killed. And that's like, I love that, like, because Cooper is now putting it together as to who this is, and there is a real fear with Cooper. Like Cooper's genuinely afraid because he knows what Windom Earle will do to this town. He will destroy it. Right. He will single-handedly destroy
and
it.
Cooper's come to love this town, and he doesn't. He has, and I mean, it is partially what he comes to love that that Earle appropriately, I guess, uses in the Earle's mind, uses against him, right? And so Cooper knows that that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, this is where we get where Cooper does reveal the relationship with Caroline and everything. So that's all in this episode. This is also officially the episode where Bobby is able to save Shelley from Leo.
Yes, yeah.
Which sends Leo out into the woods, and that's such
they kind of save each other.
That's true. They work together. That's true.
They did, to get. I think either one of them on their own, Leo would have.
They're both dead if it's one-on-one. Yeah, they're both dead. There's so much rage in Leo. They're dead. But I always thought too, like how scary Leo sounds when he runs out into the forest, because he sounds like a wounded animal. Like it's so animalistic and so raw that it's haunting, because it echoes out into the woods, and we know there's nothing good in the woods, at nighttime, especially, and it just blends in well with all that terror and horror that is out there. There's something so like just primal scary about that. it's really creepy.
And your horror movie reference is dead on. Like I love the way this section, they're balancing like the the film noir elements, the soapy elements, and now we're injecting some horror, traditional slasher horror movie stuff into it, which is just great. And I think that whole the whole part with Leo being back was just filmed so great, and I always enjoy that sequence a lot. And like to have that reaction like you're watching a horror movie, even now when I rewatch it.
And the thing is too, we talked the world building. This is the episode where Briggs finally gets to talk again, and he confesses that he thinks he was actually taken to the White Lodge, that that's where he was. So again, we're getting a little more, and I will use, for lack of a better word, a little more concrete evidence that there is this other lodge. We know the Black Lodge because we've seen it in Cooper's visions. We know it's there. But the existence, if there is a Black Lodge, then there has to be a White Lodge. And that's interesting that Briggs continues to establish its existence. You know what I mean? Like it continues to build up the fact that this place exists, and that it is, the antithesis to the Black Lodge. And again, we're playing a game of like opposites. You've got Cooper and Earl, you've got the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. It's interesting how that dichotomy is there in our characters and in the places that they're talking about. Cooper representing everything that should be best about the White Lodge, Windom Earle representing everything that you would embrace in the Black Lodge. It's really cool to see them. They're separate paths that are absolutely going to have to connect. There's no avoiding. They're going to absolutely cross. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I really like, again, that the dread that they build up with Windom Earle, the mystery of why he's there, what's really going on. And again, just more of that world building with the existence of these two lodges. And as we'll see, I don't think it's in these episodes, but coming up, the caves and all that stuff, like it's continuing to build even more. And for this stage in the game, that's really interesting. And it's impressive that they were still able to build that side of the mystery up, like the whole other world, that beyond the veil of Twin Peaks, like that stuff's, it's interesting that they were still able to do that at this point, because we're now in, this is the mid-20s of episodes of the show. You know what I mean? Like we're well into it. We're well past the revelation of who killed Laura Palmer, and we're still building up this mythos, and that's cool, man. It's really cool.
Oh, I remember as a teen, that was what the part that hooked me into the show the most was the mythos, the fantastic and the supernatural, and so all of that was. I really enjoyed whenever they would get into those kind of discussions on the speculation and the mystery of it all, right?
Yeah.
So I love
what does
that
it all
part.
mean? And why is it here? Why is this place? Why are they so infected with this crossover existence? It's not as much as. The question, of course, of what is it is really interesting, but a lot of it is the question of why. Why here? What makes this place so unique to it? And I love that we're getting.
That's what it is.
it's the proximity to Canada.
That's right.
We've got to talk back to the great late Michael Parks, but I buy him more as a Texas Ranger than a Canadian drug dealer.
I'll give you that one all day long, sir. I'll watch from dusk till dawn just to watch him at the opening, man. That's the God's honest truth.
That's right. We got to talk about Ed and Norma as well. Like
that whole drama plus the whole Hank and Nadine. That's pure soap opera, right? There's
it's so good.
There's affairs going on, and then Hank knows what's going on, and he's going to beat up Big Ed, and then Nadine comes in and
beats the shit out of him. It's so hilarious, that scene where she just obliterates his world, man. And it's not Leo Johnson that does it. It's not some other big bad. It's absolutely.
And then he's going around. Dude. He's in the hospital. I got hit by a truck, and
oh God!
I like Hank as a villain. Like I actually think he's a great character, and I agree. This is the end of his run too. So say goodbye to him and a great actor who played him. But I liked him as a villain. But I mean, he's a bad guy, and it was great.
Oh, he's a piece of shit. Yeah, he's awful.
Yeah, and it's great to see her take him out, right? Like because as much as Nadine's great, because as much as I remember in the very first episode, she's always angry. She's always and she's mad, and you're thinking but you come to love her over time and understand, and you understand why Ed doesn't just leave her.
You do.
You understand that he cares very much for her, even if she's not the love of his life, and she's a good person overall. And again, I love the way her story pays off in the return, but we're jumping too far ahead. But but I do love this part of the arc too, where she is really embracing. I think there's a part of her, if there's a part of her that is conscious of the real world, I think that she's you could see these moments as her, recognizing the reality of because she loves Ed, and if she can see what he really needs, and that maybe he's not what's right for her, right? And I'm not saying that that Mike is what's right for her. That's the whole other conversation to have.
That's a different conversation. Yep.
I think in that whole scene, of course, we've gotten two scenes. One is suggested what
Right.
happens with Ed and Norma.
Right.
But then the next scene, they're in bed together, and then Nadine shows up,
Yeah.
and Ed's like, might as well just deal with it. And then Nadine
Yep.
just hops in bed with him. It's like, hey, how's it going? And
Yeah.
then
Totally cool. Totally
she's
cool,
like,
man.
I'm
Yeah.
fine. And I think, yeah, even though she's having this repression because of her
Yeah.
being in a coma, I think you're right. I think there is a little bit of her accepting, like, yeah, I love Ed, but I know that this is who he's in love with.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Like,
I think that's a really good observation, and I think it's knowing. I mean, when you're watching it again, you can kind of look for these things. I think that's I don't think that's a far stretch at all. I think it's very, very suggestible that there's those little bits coming through, where she's able to see just enough to be like, yeah, you know what, you guys really do belong together, and I'm having fun with Mike, and I'm having fun with this other life, and you know what, we're all good, everybody's good. Let's just do that, and it's funny because this does plant the seed for what will happen in the return. It really does. But it's like, it really is it's a funny subplot. It's funny, but there's a sweetness to it too. And that's a prime example of it right there. Nadine is a character that it's to me, and I can't imagine not liking Nadine. She's crazy, but I love that about her. She's definitely the wild card. Like, there's no telling what the hell she's going to do. Is she going to be mad at Ed about the oil on the floor? Nope, because she was, but then suddenly she realizes with the cotton, them drapes is silent. So, it's like, hey, she could go back and forth, but I always find her interesting. I think Wendy Roby does a beautiful job with the character.
She does.
Because that's a subplot that's so born in soap opera. It's drenched in it, man. It's bubbly and sudsy. It's so soap opera, right?
Yeah.
But it could have been acted so one note, and they never let Nadine be a one note character. It's a silly thing, but if Wendy Roby doesn't do the work, if we don't care about Nadine, then that subplot doesn't matter.
Right.
And I love the fact that it does matter, because we do care about Nadine, and we care about Ed, and we care about Norma. I will say too, with the end of Hank, I love that Norma gets to finally just confront him and be like, hey honey, we done.
Yeah.
Guess what I'm not doing for you anymore. You're going to sit behind these bars. I'm walking out that door. That is a great moment of agency for Norma Jennings. Nobody else does that for her. She does it for herself.
I've said before how much I love Norma and Shelley together. And when they have that moment, this is in episode 22, when they're like, Shelley comes in and they're kneeling down on the ground and they're having that conversation.
Yes.
And you can just, again, you see their connection, and they're these two women that have been through so much difficulty and so much abuse and struggle, and seeing Norma finally take some agency and being able to demonstrate that for basically her like surrogate daughter in a way, right?
Yes.
So again, I love that relationship between the two of them. And then when she gets to talk to Harry and say, Harry, I don't want him back, I'm done with this. I love that moment too, and I love that Harry stands up and is, because he's a good man, and he says, we'll make sure that he's not coming back he won't be coming back. And that's a good ending to that. Like, Hank should be going away, and that's the right ending for that part of it.
It is. And I'm totally fine with never seeing Hank again, because as far as I'm concerned, he just rots in prison and that's it. Done. Norma is free of that jackass, and the town is free of that jackass. So Harry, especially, because he no longer having to be his parole officer. He's like, you know what? I told you, asshole, I was going to get you, and we did. And I'm fine with that. Fine with every bit of that. Everything.
Hank gets everything that's coming to him. That's great, and that's
you cannot. I mean, he is his own worst enemy, dude. He's been given a chance, and what does he do? He gets right back in the shit, dude. It's exactly what he does, because he's a bad person. There's no salvation for Hank. He's not going to be rehabilitated, and Norma deserves better. Period. Full stop. That's it.
Exactly. That's it. No, 100%. I mentioned to you guys before we did this that I do love Diane Keaton's episode, Slaves and Masters. I know that it's divisive amongst fans. I know that a lot of people, but one of the things I just want to talk about, sort of her work on this. As a guest director, we've talked a lot about some of the regular directors who've been working on the series and the great work that they did. But I feel like she really infuses the dreamlike quality back into the series that maybe had been missing for a little while. she does this, like her episode is more surreal than maybe some of them have been since maybe the premiere of season 2, or some of those more surrealist work that's been done. And I really love the way she wraps up, you know, Evelyn's storyline. I love the way she does this thing with frames constantly through the episode. You know, there's the, you know, Cooper and Pete in the door. There's also Harry and Norma in the door frame. Like, there's a number of things that she does where she's, you know, framing people in different ways. And but I think for me, it's the dreamlike quality, the way that she has, you know, she superimposes Evelyn's face over the, you know, at the beginning and at the end. And so it's memories. Is it a dream? Is it the memory? And that ties in so much to all of David Lynch stuff about the dreamer and the dream. And this episode always stands out for me. And again, I know that some fans are down on this episode, but for me, it really speaks to a lot of what pulled me into Twin Peaks in the first place, and ties back into whether it's episode 2.
I can't imagine. For me, I think, to me, she has to do a lot of heavy lifting in this episode, because there are some major events that tie up and other things that get set in play in this episode. So this is not like a throwaway episode that you'd normally give to a guest director, where there's no real consequences because it's a guest director and you don't have a lot of time. And yet she absolutely gets the assignment, completely, and delivers. You can definitely tell that she is a fan of David Lynch. You can definitely tell that she had been watching the show, you know, that she knew what was expected of her on the assignment. And this episode, to me, like, one of my favorites of the season, I would have to agree. And I think, you know, you've got some really cool moments in this episode. I love that we still see Agent Cooper being the stalwart Agent Cooper of, I don't want to win the chess game. I need it to end in a stalemate. Yeah. And then we find out that the Bobby Fischer of Twin Peaks, if you will,
I know,
Pete is so Pete. Oh my God, Pete. And he's like in the diner playing all of them at different chessboards and beats them all. And they're all like, well, that's all I needed to see, Pete. You're in.
Well, you got the credentials.
I mean, that's such a magically perfect moment. That's such a perfect Twin Peaks moment. Yeah. That Pete Martell is the hidden chess master of Twin Peaks. Yeah. He's going to be involved in an actual major investigation series where he's going to be literally just playing chess, but it could genuinely save lives, man. Like, I love everything about that. That's one of my favorite things that happens in the season.
You're really right about, like, this not being a throwaway episode. Like, there's so many, like, there's the iconic return of Albert Rosenthal and his embracing him and Harry embracing.
Truman,
I love that.
BFFs now.
Yes, it's one of my favorite moments, dude. It's so good that they hug each other. Like, it's so genuine. It's so good.
Cole.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And we get the wonderful scenes of Windom Earle and Leo, where he makes Leo his own little puppet, and nobody feels bad for Leo because Leo's a piece of shit. Yeah, Leo, but it's great to watch Leo being controlled. Like, literally controlled by Windom Earle. And again, it goes to show how terrifying Windom Earle is. Yes. If he can literally control the bull in a china shop that is Leo Johnson, and make him, like, humble, make him scared, dude. Leo Johnson gets genuinely scared of Windom Earle, and rightfully so. Yeah. Again, that's powerful stuff that she has to pull off in this episode. Yeah. And this episode for me is like, I mean, it's kind of all killer, no filler. Every scene is building up or closing up something, and that's a big deal, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is divisive about this episode, Colin?
I think I've read some and heard some stuff online about people being like, feeling like it's too showy. It's too, like, you know, camera tricks for no reason. I don't think that's true. I think
I don't think at all.
Tapping into something very Twin Peaks in this. There's the row of, you know, bus drivers or whatever listening to the opera in the bar. Like, I just think that's the kind of thing. It's like the bouncing balls in the hotel, or like, it ties back into so many of those moments, right? That
the guys at the bar looking up at the TV at the same time, that's so perfectly Lynchian. Like, it's it's so perfectly Twin Peaks. I can't imagine anybody saying that that's like, oh, that was just no. That makes perfect sense in the world of Twin Peaks. That scene makes me laugh every time I see it. Every damn time.
That
But
argument.
it also adds. Oh yeah, go ahead, Cody. Sorry.
I was gonna say that argument is saying it's too showy of directing. That's like someone saying auteur, like directors with a vision, should direct franchise films, or
Right.
people complaining when they hire Sam Raimi. Are you gonna do that weird camera stuff?
Right,
I'm like, well,
right.
then why'd you hire him?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you want Sam Raimi to do, right? Yeah, exactly.
But it adds to the dream. Going back to like my
Yeah.
theory on this is it really adds to that dreamlike quality again of this episode, and tying back into that dreamer, the dream and the dreamer theme that's going on throughout the show, and in a way that hasn't been tapped into in a little while, I think. And again,
This is
no
one of the
shade
episodes-
to the other directors, but this
Yeah,
one
no.
always stands out for me. Yeah.
The other thing that really stood out to me about this episode is it's one where the Log Lady's introduction really sets up some really good stuff with this, because she's talking about the idea of the death mask.
Yeah.
And when you watch that, you're like, what is she really going on about? And then, of course, at the end of the episode, you find out exactly what she's talking about.
That shot is
oh,
so
it's a terrifying
too.
shot. The light coming out of those eyes is nightmare fuel, dude. It's oh god.
And then we're looking through it. We're looking through. We're seeing Cooper's eyes through the mask.
That he didn't recognize
so much foreshadowing
that he was there in the hotel.
Yeah.
Well, and again, when you see that on his bed, that means Windom Earle was there. And if Windom Earle was there, then guess what? He knows where you sleep. He knows where you're at. And that's, again, chilling. It's that kind of thing where it's like Windom Earle could have killed him at any given moment, but that's not the point. That's not the point.
This is the episode that also has, the Wizard of Oz reference that is so important in Lynch work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's always referencing
you were there, and I woke up from a dream, and you were there, and you were there. Like that's just that moment. And,
I mean, hell, Wild at Heart absolutely stamps its Wizard of Oz in this to it. I mean, it's full blown there, man. You got Glinda the Good Witch played by Laura Palmer. Come on,
yeah.
But
and that as much as I think there's potential, there's issues with it, with the choice of him being Ulysses S. Grant in this, but sorry, that him being General Lee, pardon me, I was getting it backwards, sorry. But there's some issues potentially with that, but the way that resolution is finally handled, I think, is just a really sweet moment. And
it is.
We've had all that great agency for Audrey, and then we get to see Ben come back. And again, Ben is one of those, like Catherine, like great villain characters that you can love and hate at the same time, complicated in many ways. And we're about to be introduced to a brand new Ben that's going to go in a whole new character. And Richard Bamer is going to give just more great performances throughout the rest of this season. But this is sort of the saying goodbye to that chapter and moving into, and it's just handled so nicely. I just think the way Diane Keaton shoots that scene, and again, very dreamlike again, because it's all about his psychosis. Like, and again, like before, the scenes with his, reenactment of the Civil War felt like cosplay and felt like, like a tabletop sort of game thing. But then by this episode, suddenly it's like you're on a Gone with the Wind movie set.
Yes,
right.
They've got the full blown. They got the horse and everything.
Yeah,
like
the
it's
costumes are like full on. And again, I wonder, like, is
room.
that real, or are we seeing it somewhat filtered through Ben's understanding
eyes?
of the reality?
Yeah.
And again, what's real? What's the dream? That's what I think so much of this episode speaks to me. Is it?
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Well,
we also get, of course, a little bit more of the resolution towards James, because this is where Evelyn actually shoots her lover, and that's a big move, because it looked like it was going to be curtains for James, and then she ends up, she loves him, and it's very much again
right
that
thing. She's the real bad guy.
yeah, thank God she gets the right one, right? That's all there. I mean, like, this is really and truly, this is not the episode you normally just bring in a guest director on. It's really not. And Diane Keaton's work in this is it's some of the best.
And I believe first time director too. Like I think
it may have been.
I think this was her first shot at directing. Now, obviously, she has a lot of experience, and
that's incredible for someone who's mostly been an actor. Granted, she's one of the greats of her generation, but someone who's never directed and then comes in and does something that feels exactly the style of the show's creator and his type of direction. That's really an incredible job.
It is. No, it really is. And it's definitely, to me, one of the standout episodes of the season. I don't think you can say otherwise. Even if you don't like it, you'll definitely remember it if that's the case. Like, it's going to stand out to you for whatever reason. But for me, it stands out as a really great episode of television. And again, so much heavy lifting in this episode that it is absolutely not this is not the time you normally. This is where you'd bring in like your Leslie Linka Glatter. This is where you bring in your Deschanel, like the guys, Caleb Deschanel, who've done episodes. This is where you bring them in, or you bring in Lynch himself, and none of them are there. It's absolutely Diane Keaton, and she gets the assignment, man. Like
Leslie Linka Glatter's back next week.
Yeah, she gets the next one. She does,
which is great because she's one of the strongest directors that
without a doubt
has. So great,
without a doubt,
sure. But
she's one of the best.
I like to push back against the narrative that this is, the negative talk out there about this episode.
As far as this group's concerned, you're not hearing that here, man, because I'm going to tell you, I think it's a fantastic episode. I think it's one of the best of the season.
Job.
Yeah.
And there's definitely been other episodes in this show that have more filler than this. This is this is pretty much top-notch narrative for the rest of the season.
Well, yeah, they were. You could tell they were trying to wrap up some of those plot lines that they didn't want to deal with anymore. They were introducing the new big stuff, whether it's the Eckert stuff or the Windom Earle stuff, or they were really ramping that kind of stuff up, and they were wanting to put away some of the old stuff. And like I said, we're moving into New Ben, we're moving into the Josie storyline, we're moving into the big bad. Like all of this stuff is coming, and we're back on that. I think if there's a roller coaster at all, like we're definitely heading up to that big, which is good.
The other thing I think is
exciting.
One of the neat things in this episode, of course, is we know Leo's got the shock collar, and we know that Windom is making him write a poem, and then he shreds it up, and you're like, what the hell is he doing with this? And then, of course, our main girls all get a piece of it, incorporating them into the setting things up for the Miss Twin Peaks pageant and all that. But I love how it all comes together when they put their pieces together. Like, it's so, like, there's something so creepy about that. Again, that Windom Earle was able to, what looks so like instantaneous, what looks so improvisational ends up being a precisely put together plan. It goes to show just how multi-layered this man's brain is. Again, he's playing 4D chess, and that really cements it for me. When the three of them get together and they're like, well, what does yours say? What does yours say? What does yours say? And then you put it all together and it's one giant piece. And that's what Leo is transcribing. We didn't really see the whole thing, but now we know what it is. Again, Windom Earle is he's great. He's great. He is a top tier villain. Again, I was hoping there'd be some way that he would be incorporated later down the road. Unfortunately, it's not. But oh God, he's so great, and I'm so glad that we get him in this season to really, bring things to a close with like some real genuine fire, man, some real genuine heat, some real genuine intensity, man. It really ups the ante for the season. It really does.
The one thing we didn't talk about was Lana. we get Lana and the mayor connecting.
That gets wrapped up too.
Yeah, again, I'm not as big a fan, but I know that other people enjoy that storyline a little bit more.
It's so ridiculous.
I mean, it is kind of crazy. They're like, "Well, we'll let you talk to by yourselves," and he's still got his.
And he's got the gun, like, because take the gun from him.
Yeah, he's still got the gun, and then they come out, and we've got we're all lovey kissy. We got the kissing marks all over the face. It's great. It's so fun. It's the soap opera element, right? Like that's so completely that.
Jacoby's not even mad that the bear came in and took it because
he just accepts it. You know what I mean? Like he just rolls with it, and it's just funny as hell to me. Like it's almost like it was meant to be because it's the brother of the one that died who was married to her. Why would the other one not take over, right?
And
it's so funny. He goes from being so angry with a shotgun to be like, "We're gonna get married," and you're like, "The hell happened? Like what?" It's so stupid and so great. I don't care. It doesn't take up enough real estate that it doesn't bother me. It's so goofy.
And the two of them sort of now fade into the background and just become comic relief characters for their
they
season.
Do. They do.
And that's fine. That's where, again, I like them.
That's where they need to be.
That's where they should be. Yeah, exactly. We know who they are. They do their funny bits to give a little comic relief, and then the main storylines play out. So Yeah, no, I'm
fine.
good with all that. Yes.
Yep, I'm totally good with that too. It's good stuff. I mean, it's just that extra little sprinkle of goofy that I'm fine with. I'm totally here for it. I got no problem with it. It's so again, it doesn't take up enough space to be problematic for me. It's so that's right. And when it's there, it's so goofy and simple. It's cute. I don't care. It's just it's cute. Right. I find it funny. It is fun.
But I think other than that, we've talked about pretty much all the stories.
The big stuff's there. I mean, we're of course, like I said, we do get the coat fibers with Josie. So Albert, of course, coming back with a very big deal with that. And that there's that suspicion that that's who the assassin is. Of course, we know that
Jonathan's dead. So somebody's killed Jonathan, and so
Jonathan's dead. Yes, so we've got we know there's got to be some bad stuff going on in the world of Josie. Like there's no good stuff coming. No good stuff coming.
Well, we got the bit of comedy with the whole how Coop gets the coat because Pete's carrying all those coats in.
Right.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
That's right.
I mean,
Pete's character, they never struggle to find something good for Pete to do.
No,
the whole time.
Pete is the gift that keeps on giving to Twin Peaks, man. Like he really is. I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm just gonna say I love the friendship he makes with Audrey. It's so wholesome and pure and perfect. We'll get there in the next. I think the next time we get together, we'll talk about that. But it's so wholesome, and it's one of those moments I'd forgotten about
Donna,
and then I rewatched it.
Yeah, they always find something good for Pete to do. And so he's great.
It's one of those things like Jack Nance does not get enough credit as an actor. He really doesn't. In anything that he was in, he always finds an interesting way to do a mundane thing. Whether it's just the delivery that he has, the look that he has, whatever it is, he just has that wonderful character actor quality. That anything he's in. Even if he's a bit player, you can't take your eyes off of him.
Right.
Like hell, even in Lost Highway, I was listening to that. Like it's just great. Like it just works. It's one little scene that he's in, but I remember that scene every time I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, there's Jack.
Yep.
And it's just that's the great thing about Twin Peaks is you've got just the most eclectic bunch of character actors. Bringing these amazing characters. That again, in the hands of lesser directors, in the hands of lesser actors, would be just genuine soap opera, schlock. And it's so much more than that. These characters are so relatable. They're so wonderful. It's just the kind of thing like it's. And I'm not saying there aren't shows that do that well, but there is just something really special about Twin Peaks that it can reside on this fine line of like comedy, quirky. Drama, soap opera, horror, like all of these things. And yet still what everybody really comes back to it for is still at its core the characters, not the mysteries, not the various plots. Those things are great, but it's the characters. And I think that's why even some of the most mundane background things that happen are still great things. Like there's still funny things that you remember. There's still moments that you remember, silly little bits that you remember. And that's something very special about this show that, again, all these years later, I can still look at it and it still feels fresh and it still feels interesting. And it still feels like almost every time there's always something I catch different or something that just plays different for me. And it's just, that's great television to me. Like that's great writing. That's just great filmmaking, period. It's just great, period. I love this show so much. And it makes me so happy to get to talk about it with you guys. Cause like I have so many friends that I've introduced to it. And I love seeing like a girl I was in a play with. She's like just turned 18 and she was starting to get into like David Lynch.
Right.
And we started talking about Twin Peaks and she's like, I haven't really gotten into it yet. And I'm like, you call me when you have, because we got a lot to talk about. And she messaged me when she finished. She was just like, "Oh my God, this is the most amazing thing!" And I'm like, as much as you like the other David Lynch stuff you watched, I was like, "There's no way on earth you weren't going to love this." It's like now you got to watch the movie, and then you got to watch The Return. And she's like, "I have to do it in that order." I was like, "Oh my God, yes!" Like, you will be lost if you don't. Like Christ Almighty, you have to. You absolutely have to.
Yeah. There's no other way.
Saying, hey, can I just watch The Return of the King?
Yeah.
No. No. Oh my God in heaven, you wonder what the hell is going on? No. You can't just do that. No.
You're either in or you're not.
Right. Like, you got to be with it from the beginning. That's one thing I do love about, having done this with you guys and watching the episodes again and talking about them. Like, there is something to talk about with every episode.
Yeah.
There are no like filler episodes. And that's something that's so common in television nowadays. Like, just the throwaway episode that has nothing to do with the main arc. It doesn't connect into anything. Doctor Who got really bad about that, where I was just like, God, come on. Like, if you're building these overall story arcs for the season, every episode, because you don't have a ton, every episode needs to be building up that arc. And if you're not doing that, why are we doing this episode? Like, every once in a while you get a filler episode that works, but it's so rare. And that's what most television today, that tends to be a problem. They've got to fill out so many episodes for a season. And it's just like, well, we got this main thing, but we can't give it all away now, or people won't stay with us till the end. So we got to figure out something else to do in the meantime. And I can't stand that. That just feels like filler because it is filler. And with Twin Peaks, you don't have that. Every episode is consistently building the world, setting up storylines, closing storylines, introducing new characters, establishing more characters, bringing back characters that we love. It's constantly doing that. And I wish more television shows would take that inspiration from Twin Peaks, not just the cinematic look of Twin Peaks, the feel of it and stuff, but the no filler episode of Twin Peaks. That would be great. That's the thing I think that I love.
I think there is a lot of shows that have, but I mean, the thing you're complaining about is just the issue with network TV shows that have to do so many episodes in a season. I mean,
right. It's not on streaming as much because that's all like they can tell. They basically have as long as they need to tell the story.
I don't know.
There are some.
I feel like some streaming shows,
not as bad as network. That's for sure.
I find British TV is better about this generally. British TV is like, we only need 4 episodes. That's all we're going to do.
Yeah.
Yes, and I love that.
They're way better at that than American ones are. Like,
yeah, they almost make miniseries basically. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Make a miniseries. That's great. Go with that. That's great.
Yeah.
So we were thinking of 3 episodes for the next one? Correct?
Yeah, so 23, 24, and 25. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're getting, like I said, this is where we're really ramping up. I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about in these 3 episodes.
Oh, we get into the caves here. I'm just going to say that we get into the caves. That's good stuff. Oh man,
there's
that's good
a lot
stuff.
of good stuff in this one.
Yeah, so, this is great. And we get Annie. God, yeah, we've got a lot coming up in these next 3 episodes. Jeez Louise.
We do.
Wow. No, that's good stuff.
We watch them.
I've already went through the whole thing, so I'm just now just going through just reminders of myself. But it was great taking my partner through it. She absolutely loved it. She really did. All the way through to the return. She absolutely loved it. She has issues with the return and they're valid. Mainly Audrey, which we'll talk about that when we get there. And I think all of us can agree on Audrey and the return. I think we all can. But she was very satisfied overall.
So does St. Patrick's Day work for everybody, or is that a big thing for everyone?
No, we'll just wear green when we record.
Yeah, I shouldn't be too drunk.
I'm not Irish, so I don't know.
I shouldn't be too drunk. This should be okay. Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know because some people take it a little more like it's an official holiday than others, and other people are just like, it's just a day.
My partner and I love St. Patrick's Day, but we'll probably celebrate more on Saturday so that we have Sunday, the actual day, to kind of like recover.
Right.
That's the smart money.
On Monday.
I'll just do a little light day drinking. It'll be fine.
All right. So that's what we'll aim for.
Excellent.
And if what happens happens, but next time 3 episodes, then we only have 4 episodes left.
Yeah, getting through season 2. Yeah.
Then we get into the film, and then we get into the missing pieces, and then we got a full blown 18 hours of craziness with the return. I'm
excited for the return. I've only watched it twice through, so I'm quite excited to give it another watch through.
I enjoyed it this time through even more. Like it's dense. And man, there are some deep cuts. There are some deep cuts of things you don't remember from first season stuff that comes back. And I'm like, whoa, wow, I forgot all about that. I forgot all about them. There's some deep cuts, and it's definitely a greatest hits package for Twin Peaks if ever there could be. That's the return by far.
Well, thanks, guys. As always,
Yeah.
it's great
Always a
discussion.
pleasure.
So much fun. Thank you so much.
Indeed. I guess between now and then, what other big movies do we have coming out between now and then? We've got
between now and St.
because
Patrick's
Ghostbusters
Day?
is the week after, so we don't have Ghostbusters yet, but we'll have.
My wife's excited for Kung Fu Panda 4.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kung Fu Panda 4 will be fun. I think, do we get Godzilla versus Kong? Is that
Not
I
till
think
after.
that's
That's
the end of the
after
month.
Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Oh, that's even after Ghostbusters. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
all there. Boy, March is a big month, though. It's crazy, like how much is going on.
But
Yeah.
but I mean, it was kind of a slow January and February, so
It really was. So it's weird though that March is like the ramp up month, because normally it's like, May going into like Memorial Day and setting up the summer season, and now it's like March is now the opening of the summer season. Like, man, that's nuts.
Yeah,
I would not think Dune 2. I didn't think Dune 2 was going to open in March, and then suddenly it's the opening weekend of March, and then Ghostbusters is like at the end, and Godzilla versus Kong. I'm like, God, those are 3 tentpole films, and they're all in the same month. That's nuts, man. Like, that's crazy talk. So big stuff.
Yeah, and then
well, definitely, Cody, we'll look forward to hearing your thoughts on Dune Part 2.
Yeah, for sure.
Bradley, I take it that you enjoyed it.
I did. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I really appreciate Villeneuve's take on it. I very much so. I like.
Oh no, it's
I like what
like
he's
I said,
doing with it. But and yeah, I'm looking forward to a second watch. I've digested sort of the first watch and thought about it over the weekend. Now I'm looking forward to a second one.
Yeah, I would definitely go see it again in the theater. Like, I would want to see it again in the theater because it is such a big film. Yeah, you want to see it as big as you can. Cody, do you have IMAX near you?
The nearest IMAX near me is about 70 miles.
Okay. It's 3 hours for me, so I don't get to see much in IMAX. I have to go to a different state. I have to go to Columbus. So,
oh my goodness.
So as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, you know what, Cody, that's chump change. You drive the 70 miles and you go see it, you son of a bitch. I will live vicariously through you. All right.
I'll just say this: the nearest cinema which I could walk to is an IMAX. It has an IMAX in it. So there, I'll just rub that in your face there.
Shut your whore mouth.
Walk over there.
From you. I hate you Canadians. I hate you all with your beady eyes and your flappy heads. I hate you all.
That's right.
I will blame Canada, damn it. No, that's awesome to have an IMAX theater that close. That's fantastic because everything cool comes out in IMAX now. So you get to to see
but
some
it's
amazing
especially
shit.
the ones that are filmed for it, right? Like it's like
Exactly.
You notice that seeing a movie like Dune Part 2, you really feel it. Like because they can throw any movie up on IMAX, but nice when you see something that's really made for it and takes advantage of it for sure. Yeah.
Is Dune now? Is that presentation is the entirety of it in IMAX, or is it just sequences?
No, it's the entirety of it. It was.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Intended for it, so that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And they don't mess around with their surround sound.
Do you guys
IMAX
have those
either, so
cinemas that do the thing where you get the side panels of this? Like you can go to certain ones and they have the side. I find those ones so weird. Like it's such a weird experience. I'm not sure I'm sold 100% on those ones. But what
I wish I could experience, like what I wish somehow they could bring back would be Cinerama. To be able to see where the actual arced screen goes to your basic ends of your eyes, man. Like, having seen 2001 like that would have been on a different level, man. Like that would have been. I can't fathom in 1968 what that would have looked like to your human brain. Man. Like that would have been insane. But I wish I could have experienced Cinerama because there are so many films that have come out, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy in Cinerama would have been magical. Dune Part 1 and 2 would have been magical. Like there's so many big films that would be amazing to take advantage of Cinerama. I just wish it was because that was 3 projectors.
Right.
So I would love to see like someone take that on. Like I know it will never come back, but God, I wish I could have seen it just once, anything at Cinerama. That would have been God, so spectacular. It was the IMAX of its time, but you're talking 70 millimeter film, 3 projectors, 1, 2, 3, making this beautiful solid image. Like, God, I can't imagine what that would have been like. That as a cinephile, like that's one of the great crimes I'll never get to experience. I got to go to the drive-in as a kid, seen things in IMAX, but man, never getting to see Cinerama is one of those, like, I'll never get to check that off the bucket list. And that will always eat at me. Cause it's like, there's so many great films that have come out in the past, like, 40, 50 years that would have been amazing in Cinerama. So Dune is definitely one I think would have been, holy cat's amazing. Because I'm sure that IMAX presentation is absolutely engrossing.
Yeah, it's great. It was great to see it that way.
I'm sure that was, dude. Well, I definitely will look forward to seeing your thoughts on it, Cody. However you see it, whether it's IMAX or not. But 70 minutes, that's chump change, you bastard. You go.
Well, I'll try, but I mean, our local theater we go to that's just 20 miles has heated seats, so that might be.
There's a lot to be said for heated seats. Then you can experience Dune. Your ass can feel like it's on Arrakis, and that's really important. That's part of the vibe, man.
Well,
and if you get the sandworm popcorn bucket, you can have a full blown experience there. You know, I mean, like, who needs IMAX if you got that popcorn bucket? My God, man. That's some of the greatest viral marketing I've ever seen in my life. Because SNL had a damn sketch about it, people. Like, that's where we are.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to get one just for shits and giggles. I really do. I'm not gonna lie. So if you have access to one of those, I totally get it. Heated seat, sandworm.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I mean? Like,
that's also probably how I'll get my wife to watch it, is if she has a seat warmer.
Right.
That's fair. That's fair. I get that. I totally that the theater where I saw it had the warm seats, and it is a nice, addition. Just gonna put that out there. It does feel nice to have that. But yeah, definitely go. You can't not see it in a theater. That's all I'm gonna tell you. I don't care what
definitely. I mean,
you can't not see it.
You'll want to see it for the first time on a big screen, even if it's not IMAX. You want to see it on a big screen for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Get out.
Absolutely.
Definitely the biggest movie of the year, probably next to Furiosa.
Yeah, God, I cannot wait for that. Thank God that's this year. God,
that's not too far off either, I don't think.
Nope, May.
Fury Road is one of those movies. When I saw it, I came out of the theater and I was like, I would have never thought that the future of action cinema would be shown to me by a 70-plus-year-old director, and yet here we are. Fury Road is one of those movies, like, God damn, dude, like that's a movie right there, man. Like, that's why you go to the movies. If Furiosa delivers even like a third of that, I'll be like, this is a cool movie. But it's George Miller behind the camera, and he's a madman. And I'm like, yeah, bring it, bro, bring it.
Trailers are promising for sure.
Oh God, they are. Jesus H, man. Like I mean, like, that's one of those like anticipation level high films for me, like, by and far. I'm all in on Furiosa. I'm actually really excited for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, because it looks like an episode of the real Ghostbusters, and I'm digging
it. Does actually. I'm one of the things I'm excited. I'm glad that Dune is resonating so much, is that it's it's nice to see, because it's not a light, throwaway film, right? It's nice to see crowds get excited for something that is exploring really interesting themes, as well as putting big spectacle, but also, really talented actors doing A-work performances. Like, it's nice to see when, all of those pieces come together, and it's not just a popcorn. And there's nothing wrong with a good popcorn film. I'm not saying like anything, but it's nice just to see all of the pieces come together and have it be everything. Have it be like critically acclaimed audience, huge audiences. Have it be just like all of the magic come together. And it doesn't happen that often. Lord of the Rings is one of the more recent examples. So it's great to see all of that come together, right?
Yeah, it's
recent examples from like 20 years ago, but you know what I mean. Like, you don't get
it's
that
true. You don't. No, Lord of the Rings is a trilogy. Like, we'll never see anything like that again in our lifetimes. Like, we just won't.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to understand that that's the case.
Yeah,
it was lightning in a bottle, and you'll never see anything like it again.
Right.
And I'm sad for those who did not get to see it in the theater, because it was majestic. I mean, like, unbelievable stuff. I still watch those films, and I still can't believe they were made in 2003 and 4 and 5. Like, that's insane, dude. Like, that's insane, man. That can't be possible, and yet it absolutely is.
The cinema when I was at Dune had a similar vibe. Like, people were excited, but people were also, like, afterwards just taking it in. People weren't jumping out of their seats to run to the bathroom, even though it was a 3-hour movie. They were like sitting there, like, okay, now I got to decompress. Like, it hit them, and like, it was a great collective kind of experience. A packed theater. I bought my tickets 2 weeks out, and I got one of the last couple seats for my friend and I. Like, it was one of those experiences of going to the cinema and with a big crowd and people being excited, people experiencing something together. And it's, it doesn't feel like that happens that often. So it's nice when that happens.
Not like it used to. No, not like it used to.
Yeah.
No, that's what surprised me about the whole Barbieheimer thing, about
Yes.
like how tickets were sold out for both movies.
Yeah.
And it was
wild.
wild.
That's the most recent example, maybe when there was really this kind of feel of people just being excited to go out and doing it together and and experience something. And both films, really good films, like not just popular, but really good too, right? And we're seeing they're both up for Best Picture next weekend. So, and one of them is going to win it.
And one of them's winning.
Yeah, one of them is probably
the
least. This is probably the least suspenseful Oscars there's ever been, and like everybody knows who's going to win everything.
Since Return of the King.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, everybody knew that was going to sweep. What was fun though was there was a good sized crowd when I saw Dune, and even they were like excited about the trailers. So like there was a trailer for The Fall Guy, which I think looks fantastic.
It does look fun.
It's got big the Nice Guys vibes, and The Nice Guys is one of my favorite films of the past 25 years. Like,
it does have a
I never knew Ryan Gosling was that funny, but goddamn, The Nice Guys is brilliant, and he is hilarious in that film. And so the Fall Guy has big Nice Guys energy. So I was like, and everyone was laughing with it. They were like, yeah, this seems like really fun. And then like I heard so many people in the audience get so excited when the Ghostbusters trailer came up, and they were just like, oh man, yeah, like Ghostbusters. I was like, that's a nice thing to feel again, like to have that excitement,
to have people be excited for stuff that's coming out. That is true. That and the War for the Planet of the Apes looks
could
be really good too. Which again, I was one of those people who's like, oh, do we want to keep doing this? Like what we've got is so good. Let's just maybe leave it. I don't. But it's looking like they found a way to tell another really great story. It looks like it could be really good. So,
it definitely looks like this one's going to be tying in closer to the original film. Like we're getting closer to that timeline now.
Right.
And so there's real distance between this and that trilogy we just got done with, which that trilogy is worthy of discussion. That's a fantastic trilogy of films. One of the best I've ever seen. And honest to God, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes are maybe the two best films in the series, other than the first. They're so good. They are so good. The second and the third ones, really, those two films they're just some of the best movies I've watched in the past 30 years. Like, they're just that good. And it's not about the visuals and the spectacle as much as just damn fine character development. Fine world building. Like, I care about every character. Like, the second one in particular, man, like, even the humans, you feel for them. Like, you understand why they're where they're at. And I think it's the best of the three. I think that's the best of the three. But it's the Empire Strikes Back of the three.
I think so too. But they're all good. I enjoy them all.
Great. They're all great. But I hate James Franco with The Fury of a Thousand Suns, and I still like the first one. Like, and that's saying a lot. Like, I genuinely do not like James Franco. But no, he couldn't even kill that film for me, because thank God there's Andy Serkis' amazing performance, because he's just great. But John Lithgow also.
John Lithgow, yes.
So, he makes that film even better than it has any right to be. So
no, but you're right about the trailers. Like, I found the audience I was with, you could tell there was buzz and excitement for
it's cool to feel that
nice
again.
To see people get excited again about,
because dude, the summer films, like as when I was growing up, man, like you couldn't wait for summertime, because that's when all the big movies were coming out, and you were so jacked. And like that was my whole purpose for watching the Super Bowl, was for what movie trailers am I going to get to see, right? Like that's what I care. I didn't care about the game. I want to see what movie trailers are coming out, and I would watch the E channels, like summer guide to movies, where they showed all the trailers for all. I couldn't watch that enough, man. I was like, God, give me more. You're like, hell, I'll even probably go see Twisters, just because it's a sequel to Twisters.
I'm excited about Twisters too. I love it. The original Twister is one of I adore the original Twister, and
that's a great movie. And that is a great definition of a popcorn flick right there. It's so much fun. I care about every character in it. It's great. And what was so fun, when I came out of the theater, it had rained during the time we were watching it. So I come outside and there's like branches on the ground and like everything's wet. And I was like, this is a little too much right now, guys. Like, I'm a little, I need to decompress a little more here, guys. Like, this is not cool.
Exactly. Well, what I love about it is the way that it's kind of the inversion of a disaster movie. Like normally a disaster movie is a bunch of people running away from some disaster. And this is
Yes,
about a bunch of people chasing the
going into
disaster.
it. Yeah,
And
no,
I
it's
love
great.
that. But you're right. That's a really good example of a good popcorn flick that just
It's perfect.
delivers, is entertaining, gives you some good characters to follow.
For me, like the summer of '96 is one of like the best ever because you got Twister, you had Mission Impossible, and you had Independence Day, and all three of those are outstanding popcorn flicks. Like they're goofy. Independence Day is huge, goofy fun, but God, is it a great popcorn flick? And I remember being in the theater with people, and they were like cheering and yelling and like just all like laughing and jumping. It was just this amazing communal experience that I really probably hadn't felt since like the Star Wars trilogy. It was pretty spectacular, man. Like that was a lot of fun. That was a great year for cinema. I really like for popcorn flicks. It didn't get much better. It was great.
Also, probably the best Michael Bay movie, The Rock.
Oh yeah, The Rock was that year too. That's a great movie.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
I
It
think
is Michael Bay's
probably
movie.
the best Michael Bay movie.
There's no real debate there. I think it's his best. Although I do like Pain.
The bar's not high.
Yeah,
bar's not high. That's true.
I do like Pain and Gain though. Pain and Gain actually I thought was a pretty fun flick. It's so crazy and over the top, but it's like based on a true story. And I love that there's like a moment in it that's so over the top that they actually pause the movie and put the words up on the screen. This really did happen. I was like, wow, that's insane, man. Like that's Scarface level nuts, dude. That's like a lot of cocaine involved. So yeah, that's up there with The Rock. That's his two best. And yeah, bar's not high. Bar's not high.
Well, we've veered a lot off of Twin Peaks, but that's okay. That was a fun discussion too. So that's great. So
well, we're all movie nerds too at heart. So I think it's something we can all relate to. Yeah. But I'm very excited that we're getting towards the end of season 2 of Twin Peaks. There's a lot of great stuff to still discuss.
Me too.
And then of course, God, we've got
it's amazing like to talk about.
The tonal shift, the tonal shift of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me and on, like it is. We're getting into heavy territory there. That's going to be some like we're going to be talking like one episode at a time kind of stuff when you get into the return. There's some heavy stuff, man. It's oof. For those of you who are still possibly watching this, if you haven't watched the return, it's going to be interesting to see your takes on it because man, to me, everybody I've talked to about it, there's no middle ground. It's either you love it or you hate it. There is no real in between, man. It's either you're in or you're out. There's no maybes or kind of or sort of. It's either left or right, man. It's black or white. It's just in or out. That's it. It's its own thing, man. It's its own thing. Yeah. But if you follow David Lynch's work before the return, if you've watched Mulholland Drive, if you watched Lost Highway, if you watched Wild at Heart, you're going to be well more prepared for the return than if you haven't. I'll just say that. And I wouldn't even be against the idea of finishing the series, maybe talk about a Lynch film or two.
Okay.
Go to the movie Twin Peaks and the missing pieces. Maybe talk about one more Lynch film. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm almost like we just need to talk about Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say those are the ones I'm thinking. Maybe Wild at Heart.
And Wild at Heart. If we did those 3 in the mix before we get to the return, I wouldn't feel bad about that because I feel like so much of the language of Lynch, when he gets to the return, so much of that language is written in those 3 films. Like for me, that's where you really start to see the real David Lynch. Like that's where he doesn't have to answer to anybody. He's got his own funding. He's making the films he wants to make, and that's what you get. I mean, for me, Lost Highway remains my favorite Lynch film. I get why people pick Mulholland Drive. I mean, it was nominated for the Academy Award. I totally get it. But those 2 films and Wild at Heart with its massive Wizard of Oz, notes. Those 3 films to me are so interwoven into Fire Walk with Me and The Return that I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm also fine if we just want to power through all things Twin Peaks. But I almost feel like having a discussion about those films and how Lynch changed as a filmmaker with those movies would make talking about The Return even easier. I feel that's just me. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah,
just
we got some time to think about it.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I'm not against like maybe like not necessarily a palate cleanser, but something a little different that's related.
Well, it's not even a palate cleanser. It's more of just a prep.
Yeah.
Like, this is your homework before you watch The Return. You need to get the Lynch language down before you go into The Return, because so much of The Return is modern Lynch. It's not.
Yeah.
And a big theme of it is you really can't go home again. And Lynch doesn't try to. He doesn't try to make this Twin Peaks season 3. It's The Return. It's not season 3. It's The Return for a reason. So that's why I feel like that might be a discussion worth having with those films. Again, to kind of break things up a little bit, get some of Lynch's filmography into our discussion, which is great. But again, I just feel like they would help the discussion on The Return so much more. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
So would you suggest we watch some of those before Fire Walk with Me, or watch Fire Walk with Me first?
I even still feel like we'd at least need to watch Wild at Heart.
That makes sense. That's even
because Fire Walk with Me starts getting real surreal, dreamy, and that's where I feel like Wild at Heart does a really good job of blending that well, while also making a great road trip film. It's kind of not great, but again, there's a tonal shift in how Lynch works in that movie going into Fire Walk with Me that I just feel like that might be an idea. Again, just throwing it out there. Right. I'll go with whatever the consensus is, but it would give us a chance to take a little break from Twin Peaks and get into his filmography some. But those films are going to really set the groundwork for that discussion on The Return. Just, again, throwing it out there. You guys think about what you want to do. I will go with the consensus. I'm an easy roller like that, but I'm easy like Sunday morning. I'm just saying. But we'll just go with. I just thought it might be an idea, because if for the 3 people who watch this who aren't us, it might be kind of like, what would really, like, how do I prepare myself for The Return? Because you guys have talked about how batshit nuts it gets, and I'm like, well, here's how you do it. You got to do some homework. Watch these 3 films, you'll be ready. Because they get real into dream, and really a big part of it is just that idea of what's real and what isn't.
Yeah.
And how much of that is your memory, and how much of it is what you choose to remember versus what you really know. Right. That's where I feel like, and The Return has so much of that going on. So
it really does.
Just a thought.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad idea at all.
No, I kind of
Fire Walk with Me, when I saw it in the theater, I loved it, but it was definitely like it. I mean, God, it smacked me across the face to be like, this is not Twin Peaks, Kevin. This is different. This is darker. This is way heavier.
We talk Wild at Heart, talk about how it won the can, but then American critics tore it apart.
Destroyed it.
Yeah.
And it didn't find its audience in America until it got to like video, basically. And then it found its cult audience, like all of Lynch's stuff tends to.
But it's so many films, but I mean, for Lynch especially, but I mean, it happens for so many, like we've been talking about how Dune has found a reawakening, his version. There's, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me was Budokan, but now it is fine.
Now it's embraced as one of his best.
Embraced. It's on, Criterion release was really widely accepted.
Look at Blade Runner. Look at John Carpenter's The Thing. When they came out in '82, they were lambasted.
But this is something it's been going on forever. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life was kind of thrown away when it was originally released.
Now it's an institution,
right? Yeah. So I think those 3 films to me would be a really good setup to power through Fire Walk with Me, The Missing Pieces, into The Return.
Right.
Or at least watch Wild at Heart, then Fire Walk with Me and The Missing Pieces, then Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, then you power through The Return. That's just
that could work. Let's think about that. I like that.
Think about that
suggestion.
More importantly, though, before we meet again, please watch that Spice Diver edit of Dune, because I would love to talk with you guys. We'll have to talk about Dune, obviously, because it's part of his filmography.
Yeah,
I would love to see your thoughts on the Spice Diver edit, and if you agree with me that this is probably the closest thing we'll ever see to what Lynch really fully intended to see in the theater. So I'm very excited.
I'm keen on checking it out.
I'm really excited to. I mean, even like offline, if you just want to get into our messenger chat and just be like, "Hey, let's talk about this a minute." Like, I just want to hear your thoughts on it, because I think you'll look at that film in a very different light, and I think a more positive light. That's It's my preferred cut now. It's what I watch when I want to watch Dune.
All right.
All right, sounds great. Well, thanks again, guys. I gotta run, but it's I always look forward to these discussions.
Absolutely.
Be safe and take care. And I look forward to talking with you guys on St. Patty's Day, man.
Yeah,
sounds great.
Y'all have a good week and a good night.
Thanks. And bye-bye.
Later, guys.
Bye.